I said it before and I'll say it again.
That scene, that last scene.
What does it mean?
I'm the dude, you know?
Get the fuck out of here.
No, I cannot. That final scene
Starts now.
Hello. We are back from our mini break. This is Ophi, and I'll be your host for the next...
You just said Ophi.
Is that how you heard?
You changed since you've been
No,
away.
is that how you heard?
No, you definitely said this is Ophi.
I did Ophi. Okay, sorry. Maybe
We'll do it live.
Let's start again.
We'll do it live. Fuck it.
I would name a monkey Ophi.
What does that mean?
What, like
Like a
Marcel
pet
and
name,
Friends?
I'll write it and we'll do it live.
That final scene
Starts now.
Hello, and we are back from our mini break. This is Sophie, and I'll be your host for the next hour or so. And I am really excited to be back with my two brilliant co-hosts, Ben and Simon.
Hello.
Hiya.
We want to give a special shout out to Amazon Music, so make sure you find that final scene and follow along our episodes there. Another reason we wanted to shout out Amazon, though, is that they literally just confirmed they are moving forward with the new live-action Blade Runner series, Blade Runner 2099, with Ridley Scott acting as an executive producer. And today we'll be talking about Blade Runner and Blade Runner 2049, so I feel like that's perfect timing. How are you feeling about it?
Well, I thought 2049 was not needed, so I don't even know if 2099 is needed.
Really?
Well, I will say, I thought it probably wasn't needed at the time because I think Blade Runner as a standalone is a fantastic film.
I feel like you could watch 2049 and enjoy the film without having watched Blade Runner in a way.
Yes. I watched it that way around, actually. I watched 2049 first.
That's interesting.
Oh, really?
And then this morning I watched the original.
And which did you prefer?
The original. The
Director's cut?
Yeah.
Or final cut?
I don't know. I watched. I bought it on
extended
Apple.
cut?
Yeah. Apple Movies.
The working draft?
Why did you
I watched the one that Ridley Scott liked and
Why did you buy it on
endorsed.
Apple Movies? It's free on Amazon Prime.
Oh, I cancelled Amazon Prime.
Oh.
Oh, wow. Oh, my
Yeah.
God. So Amazon Prime, you can see the theatrical version on Amazon Prime, which isn't the best
Oh,
one.
that's
but
all
we're
the
gonna
happy
talk about-
ending.
Yes.
Yeah.
I do feel quite optimistic about the series because the majority of the creative brains behind, the original works are coming back. We have Michael Green, who also wrote the script for Blade Runner 2049, and I really love the script for that one. And then I don't remember her name, but the showrunner of Signing Girls, have you heard of that show on Apple TV Plus? It was really good. She's the one that's gonna be writing the script for that. And Ben, I want to tell you about this. Like, I read that she's also the showrunner for Halo. And I'm like,
The game.
is it Silka, Louisa? How could someone be a showrunner of two vastly different shows? So Signing Girls is kind of horror-y with Elizabeth Moss. It's really good. And then also be the showrunner for Halo, which supposedly is trash.
That worries me, though. 2049 is like, the scale is huge. Like, there's lots of big, like, set pieces. It looks amazing. Like, one of the things about it is that it's very much a movie that's like designed to be like watched on a big screen with like big speakers, so like you can hear this, like the soundtrack is that like amazing, all the cool drones and stuff, and it looks really good. How does that work for like a 10-episode series? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it goes back to Rings of Power, right? Which they managed to do a pretty decent job, at least visually and from an audio perspective.
Visually, it looks great. Yeah, it's fantastic. And
Yeah.
I just hope they develop the story in it. But I guess that works for fantasy because that's been done with Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
I'm just like, and you can do sci-fi shows like stuff like Mandalorian and Obi-Wan have done it quite well, but I don't know. How do you do it gritty, kind of cool sci-fi?
I agree. I have a feeling that they're going to have double down on storytelling versus the visuals and audio because it's TV. And like when it comes to TV, you really need to be like, you need to ace your writing, otherwise it's gonna get boring. But I feel like 2049, even though it concluded in a very specific way, we're going to talk about it in a second, it did have a few open-ended storylines that could follow, like Wallace Corporation and what is Deckard going to do next with his daughter. So there are things that they could explore because that's set half a century after 2049. 2099.
Is he dead then, by then?
He's not... Oh, I mean...
I mean 2099.
Well, we would assume so.
That's a good question. That's a good
because I don't think Harrison Ford's not going to be in it, is he? Do we know?
Well,
Because at the beginning of the one I watched today, the original one, it's like Los Angeles 2019. He's already quite old in that.
So he's yeah, you're right. He's actually aging.
Because this is one of the films, we're getting to this time where like lots of the films from the 80s imagined the world we live in now as the future. And now we're past it.
Yes.
The Running Man, which I watched recently. That was 2017.
Yeah. How's that experience?
Really cool. I was working on a computer game, doing some audio for a computer game where the reference was The Running Man. And so I rewatched it, loved it.
So it's coming back as well?
Yeah, that's being remade actually, yeah.
Do we know who's going to be the lead?
No, but I know the director's Edgar Wright.
What?
Yeah.
Hang on, really?
What, really? I love the idea of that.
Edgar Wright. That's fantastic. I think Edgar Wright's amazing.
Let me check I've got this right.
Check you've got that right, yeah, because that sounds
we are fact-checking. Give us a second.
Edgar Wright is a sci-fi fan, so that would make sense for him to remake something like
That'd
Running
be
Man.
really interesting.
Everyone,
Edgar Wright?
This is the first time I've been right about a film fact.
Any cast stuff on it yet, or
I don't know.
It's probably still in pre-production,
Yeah,
just writing it. That'll be cool though. That'll be good.
Nice.
I just love sci-fi.
Okay,
Oh my god, I love
Yeah.
sci-fi. That's why, like, it's funny because obviously Edward James Olmos is in the original Blade Runner. He plays Gaff, I think it is. Or is that the character's name? He's in what I think is a great sci-fi remake, and he was in the Battlestar Galactica series that came out in the mid-2000s. Which, if you, I would urge you to watch at least a bit of it now, because the CGI is laughably bad. Like, it looks so cartoonish and terrible compared to even stuff that was around at the time, like Star Trek and other kind of spacey things.
Yeah.
But the story is brilliant. Like, it's such an interesting because they went, we're not going to do the whole original Battlestar Galactica. Like, it's the same premise, but it's like it's a much more like political show, and it's all about more about like the human survival element than just we're being attacked by robots and all that kind of stuff. It's really good if you want like a sci-fi remake.
But yeah, watch The Running Man. Recommend it.
I'll check it out.
It's very, very funny.
I feel like I have watched it. I feel like I have watched it before. I feel like it sticks in the head there somewhere that I have.
And I think it was based on a book written by, who's the famous horror author?
Stephen
Stephen King, yeah.
Speaking of sci-fi book, I do want to read the book that Blade Runner is based off as well.
Probably a pamphlet, judging by the storyline of that film.
And it'll be like a Scientology pamphlet about why, I should believe in the gods of Tulu or something.
Do you know what I read earlier today? That his daughter is going to be producing the show.
Oh, really? That's cool.
Yeah.
That's good.
So Ben, Rings of Power.
I'm enjoying it. Listen, I will say I am enjoying it. It is weird because...
What is it?
Lord of the Rings are a set of films that was released in the very early 2000s, made by Peter Jackson, based on the Lord of the Rings books by J.R.R. Tolkien. What Amazon have done is they have taken a book that not many people know about called The Silmarillion, which is another J.R.R. Tolkien book set in the same universe.
I love that you know all this, I have to say. Like, I'm just...
Other kind of lore about it is very elven.
Ben is the expert on anything elven.
And I don't know why, but I am.
And crystal collecting.
He's not an elf himself, yeah.
Yes. Yes, it's my
Can
Irish heritage, these pointy ears of mine. But I'm liking it. Like, it looks fantastic. Like, it looks like the most expensive TV show ever made.
Sure.
And it looks great. But the first 3 episodes have just been lots of kind of like exposition and world building and not much story progression, I would say. I think it could be good. I'm going to give it a chance because I'm watching House of the Dragon, or Hot D, as I was told people are referring to it as.
So how are you feeling about that? Because
it's a lot
What's
slower.
House of the Dragon?
So House of the Dragon is a Game of Thrones prequel. You know Game of Thrones. Then again, it's not actually. It's based on like loads of, again, short stories and like a history book basically about Game of Thrones, and it's got loads of like Matt Damon's in it, Paddy Considine's in it. Loads of, like, it's really good cast.
Yeah, but Matt Smith is really good.
Matt Smith's fantastic in it. Yeah, he's brilliant. I mean, the wig work isn't great.
Yeah,
They have these like long blonde wigs,
right?
That kind of half the time.
That's something I've never heard you say. Wig work.
The wig works isn't my favorite, but
a lot of Legolas wigs.
Matt Damon or Matt Smith looks exactly like Legolas from Lord of the Rings. Orlando Bloom's character.
Legolas.
But yeah, Legolas, not Legolas. But yeah, I mean, it's good. I'm enjoying it. The last episode was fucking intense. Me and my girlfriend are kind of watching both now at the same time, like rewatching Game of Thrones and watching House of the Dragon as well. And Game of Thrones is a lot faster, like, because there's a lot more storylines. It jumps around quite a lot. House of the Dragon is very much kind of one storyline. And so it's definitely like a slower pace. But it's good. I'm enjoying it, I would say. I'm probably not enjoying it as much as I enjoy Game of Thrones because, as I say, it was a lot faster paced. And I'm still at the stage where I'm like, is it just going to be all the same story kind of rehashed again, or at least the same themes of, what Game of Thrones was? But Yeah, I mean, it's good. I am enjoying it for what it is.
I mean, this is a trend that I'm seeing in these like franchise level TV shows where they spend at least half the first season doing setup work because they're introducing characters, and I don't know, someone like me really struggles with that sort of thing because I'm like, where is the action? Why should I give a fuck? And that's my issue with Rings of Power. It's like it looks beautiful. As I said, there's a lot to appreciate, but then I'm like, I'm 4 episodes in and I don't care about any of the characters, and I don't know if that's a good thing or not. Like, I would much rather, because I know that's a safe way to do it, and probably like House of Dragons does a bit of that, but I would love for a showrunner of that scale to be able to say, hey, let's just start with a bang.
I think a lot of the advertising and marketing of it was leading up to the Galadriel storyline, who's one of the main characters, but actually
I like her.
She's fantastic. Morfydd Clark, I think she's a Welsh actress. I'm probably butchering her name, but she's really good. It's doing a lot of like very slow kind of building of the world and all that stuff, when actually, as someone who's seen Lord of the Rings, like I kind of already know what's going on, and like all these characters that are being introduced, and I'm like, oh well, I know who this person's going to be, and I know who you are, and yeah, it's just it's quite slow, but I'm hoping it'll pick up. And it's already
me too, and it's early.
Has it been renewed for a second season?
I'm sure it will.
I feel like it has, because House of the Dragon's was renewed for a second season. I think.
Oh, was it? Okay.
The minute they released the first episode, they went, and you're getting a season 2.
Yeah.
Because that's just what they do. They just wait until people.
I'm sitting this one out for the moment.
House of the Dragon.
Yeah, because I'm like, I don't feel like watching more incesty stuff right now. I don't need that incest.
It is incesty as hell. Oh my god! Is it really?
The level of incest.
The last episode is like next level incest.
Why are you like loving describing it so much?
I'm not loving describing those bits. That's for sure.
Like, it's because we've both seen Game of Thrones. Like, there's a lot of it.
I do watch some of Game of Thrones, and there's a brother and sister storyline. Quite early on.
Yeah. House of the Dragon's worse. Automatically
so
worse.
what is that about? Is that like the fantasy genre of TV has permission to sort of run these storylines?
Well, I think
it's kind of like untapped at the moment.
I don't know. I think it's kind of a thing where people go, oh well, this is what happened in the 15s, in the 14 and 1500s.
Right.
I
think people try and use that as an excuse, but it's still fucking weird though.
Generally, from what I'm hearing, and same thing with Game of Thrones, like there are so many, to use Simon's favorite word, problematic narrative around women. Like, I'm hearing like a lot of criticism for the prequel as well.
Watching it and seeing kind of how slow it is, I'm in it now. Like, I've watched like three or four episodes, whatever it is. So I'm kind of like, I'm just going to keep watching it every week. You'd probably be better off waiting until it's finished and then try and binge watch it, because then you'll be able to like keep the pace up yourself. Yep. Obviously, I'm watching it episode by episode, so I have 7 days between to kind of sit and wait for the next thing. Whereas if you're watching it one by one,
they drip feeding them.
Yeah, it's not.
I think everything's going back towards that now, isn't it?
100%. Yeah, so many shows. Like, that's what Amazon are doing that with the Rings of Power now. That's episode. Most places are doing. Now HBO is different because obviously that's still a network in
it's
America.
Broadcast as well.
So it's broadcast. So it's being broadcast. But even Amazon, Rings of Power, they release 2 episodes and then it's week by week.
It's a better business case because you keep people subscribed for longer.
And also, the binge watching culture has meant that these streaming services have run out of content because everyone's rinsed it. So they need to extend the life of it.
I feel like Netflix is still the one streaming service where they drop everything in like at the same.
Disney are definitely grounding everything in that kind of appointment viewing. Like, even though it's not like a network TV show that it comes out at a certain time, but it's at least every week.
If you were a streaming service and you want to go for appointment to watch programming, why not create more of an environment that lets people like share the experience together? Like, no one's experimenting with.
So Disney, I think,
sort of stuff.
I think Disney, I think Disney have an option now. I might be wrong. I think Disney have an option to group watch stuff now. So a lot of
so it syncs it between your devices.
So a lot of apps or I think some streaming services. I remember like Netflix Party during lockdown.
Prime has Watch Party as well.
Yeah, Prime has Watch Party, and I think Disney Plus has.
And does it allow you
feature.
to speak to each other?
That
or
is
it just sync?
That I haven't tried it yet.
I'm not sure.
Because that'd be the next level, like being able to shout stuff and you would hear what I was saying and you could have a conversation, almost like a director's commentary, but except it's your mates.
I like that. I like to think that something like that exists out there. But if not,
we better copyright that right now. Copyright
there you go.
that Fantasy podcast.
I mean, I'm sure that it'll end up like that in AR, VR land. But even if it's just like 3 people or something. That's more than enough.
Just you and me, Simon.
You can watch Suits with me
Oh, I've never watched Suits before. Are you watching Suits?
occasionally.
Oh, okay.
All the time.
Meghan Markle, like the whole. Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm dipping into Skins a bit at the moment.
Yes,
you guys seen
you were saying.
Skins?
I've seen. Yeah, I would like. Yeah.
If you live in
Back
America,
in
you
day.
have to check out Skins. If you want to know what UK teen culture was like in 2007, Skins is the thing.
I feel like it's Skins one of those programs that they
It's very
probably tried
traumatic.
to remake for the American audience, but
It did. Apparently that happened.
Well,
Did they?
I would say a good parallel would be Euphoria now.
Oh, I've not seen that.
I've not watched Euphoria. I feel like everybody talks
It's like
about
the
Euphoria.
US equivalent of
Zendaya
that kind
just
of teen
won-
culture.
Zendaya just
Yeah.
Is Euphoria
Like
as pretty as Skins?
drugs, a lot of rape, like RAPE. I don't know if I say the word, but like
Yeah.
it has a lot of that like Skins vibe.
Incest?
But I'm not sure. I haven't
What's
watched
the
it.
the wig work like?
Can't confirm. Haven't watched it, but Zendaya's hair is like mwah.
Yeah. But that's real hair. That ain't no wig.
That's
Okay.
yeah.
Well, that's how good the wig work is.
But that's a good shout. Skins. When did it? How many?
It started about
seasons
2007,
were
and it went on a lot of seasons. But the first two are like the classics.
Because
Yeah.
they changed.
And then it goes a bit nuts.
They kept changing it, the cast and stuff as they got older, didn't they?
Yeah, so the cast stays young.
Yeah.
They just move on to a new set.
But like a lot of
kids.
people have come from Skins, or at least worked in Skins. Like so, Nick, we were saying before we started recording. Nicholas Holt's in it.
He kind of disappeared recently.
Yeah, I haven't seen him in much. Here's a question for you both: are you going to see the Weird Al movie?
What's that?
Oh my
They've
god,
made a weird.
that's coming out now.
Yeah, it's coming out really soon.
I would definitely watch
Reviews
that.
are starting to come out for it, and apparently it's really good.
Oh, I'm excited.
So basically, what they've made a biopic of Weird Al with Daniel Radcliffe playing Weird Al,
I love this.
but apparently
Wait,
the
I
review.
don't know who Weird Al is.
You don't know who
you
Weird.
do.
You do know who your Weird Al is.
Just
He's
Google
like,
him.
Just eat it, like white and nerdy. My Bologna. You'll know them. He does parody songs, huge in like the 90s and early 90s. But basically, they've made a biopic with Daniel Radcliffe playing him. What Weird Al did for music, this is doing for biopic movies apparently. So I'm really excited to see it. One last thing on what we're watching, and I will say this because Sophie and I have spoken about this before. What I did watch is after D23, the big Disney Expo, I did watch Love and Thunder, and it was terrible.
Nice.
It's just not good. It's
I
crap.
love it.
Don't bother. I'm really glad I didn't see it in the cinema. Paid to see it in the cinema. It's just a really hollow film. Like there's nothing to it, and it's really annoying because Christian Bale should be the best actor to play a Marvel villain.
Yeah, he didn't deserve
And he's
that.
just kind of wasted in it. Like he's
Yeah.
just like his scene. Obviously, he steals and he's in because he's Christian Bale and he's fantastic. But there's just what is Russell Crowe doing?
Oh my god, I found that so offensive.
Russell Crowe is playing Zeus, and he does like a faux Greek accent.
It's
and
it's
awful.
It sounds like it's a combination of Russian and Dutch. I don't even know what he's going for. Like,
Do you think he was briefed that that's what the role would require?
Well, he's playing Zeus,
I think
like
he
the Greek
winged it.
god Zeus.
yeah, but in films, you don't always adopt the accent.
But
of
listen,
the-
it's
I think
Russell
he-
Crowe. You just have to watch Robin Hood, and we already know he has a history of doing bad accents. So why they
100%.
thought?
I think he just
like,
showed up that day and be like,
I feel like
yeah.
he showed up, and they were probably like, "Just do your normal voice," and he was like, "Guys, I have been practicing for 6 months to play Zeus. I have been living on top of a mountain in Greece
Yeah,
to
I've
get
been
to connect with
reading
him."
Plato, yeah.
And now he's going to sound like this, and you're like, "Oh,
in
Jesus
Gladiator,
Christ.
is that his normal voice?
I mean, it's not necessarily his normal voice because he's an Australian, but it's his.
But he's a
it's
bit
him,
Australian
it's
in
him,
Gladiator,
It's,
isn't
it's
he?
him kind of doing more of a neutral accent, I think. Like,
Because that would have been quite Zeusy. He's like quite commanding and
Yeah.
mega.
yeah, but no, his Zeus is.
Are you not
good.
entertained?
If he had done that, that would have been great. But he plays, yeah,
Okay.
God knows why.
And we're gonna have another one,
I
probably.
know, yeah, because they've left it there for
Can you
there to be
do
another
an
Thor.
impression of what he's like?
Well, he's kind of.
I didn't
What does he
even
say? He's kind
remember-
of like faux Russian. He's kind of like talks like that. It tries to be like cool.
Yeah, it's
just,
like Italian, but there's
it's-
like some Russian in
Yeah.
there. It's weird.
And I just thought about it. I didn't even. I was so disappointed in it. Like, remember I made you wait to watch the credits, the end credits.
God.
I didn't even bother to do that. I couldn't tell you what the
So
end
you didn't
credits.
see Hercules?
Oh, was Hercules in it? Oh yeah, no, I did. I genuinely, I just turned it off. I watched it at night, and I was like, I'd rather go to sleep. I don't care.
Yeah, no, it's fine.
I mean, I'm not
Yeah.
shook by that, Ben.
You're not shooketh now. Well, you should be,
oh god.
knowing my track record.
Well, yeah, for you.
For me, I was very offended.
What's this?
It's a movie.
No!
Oh, I liked it.
No!
Can I say something?
No!
I don't get it.
What don't you get about it?
So the question that we asked you last week is very simple, yet hard to answer in a way because quite open-ended. If you could speak to one movie character, what would you tell them? I will start with the first one, which I think got the most likes. I would just hug Lee in Manchester by the Sea forever, and then I'd send him to a very good therapist. Have you guys seen Manchester by the Sea?
No, sorry.
No, it's very sad.
Yeah,
and
I really want to see it.
That's the Casey Affleck film when he won the Oscar. There was all the
Yeah.
controversy.
No, wait, I'm
on there.
thinking of Belfast, sorry.
Oh no, fuck
a different
Belfast.
film.
No, it's a horrible film.
Oh dear.
Manchester by the Sea is really good. It's really depressing.
We're going to get loads of Republican hate now because Sophie said fuck Belfast. Oh God. You've turned the Irish audience against us.
I'm so sorry.
I'm going to watch it and report back.
Manchester by the Sea.
Both.
It's quite a sad film. Yeah, I've heard it's a very, very sad
it's
film.
very sad, but
It's Oscar bait though.
Yeah. Anyway, I would like to talk to Caesar from the rebooted Planet of the Apes trilogy. I'd ask him how he views humanity and is there truly a way to find a peaceful coexistence between nature and humanity? And I would hug him too, since he really seems to need one for his compassionate leadership of the apes. That's very specific.
Yeah.
That person who wrote that comment must have watched that film recently. Because I don't remember
for quite a while,
Planet of the Apes. I don't remember. Okay. I would answer to Travis in Taxi Driver, yes, I am talking to you, punk, just to see his reaction. He would get punched in the face. That would be the reaction.
Like there's a
He
British
gets shot.
passenger in the taxi and I'm like, pardon? What?
Excuse me?
Pardon? I am talking to you. It's very, very rude.
Where's the accent coming from? I don't even know.
So I did like the one that is, talking to Austin Powers to say, stay groovy, baby. But I don't see why there's any point in saying that because Austin Powers is perpetually groovy. He's like a perpetual motion machine of just being groovy all the time. So he doesn't really need to stay
So
groovy.
it's redundant.
You know, it's like, it should be more like respect women.
Yes.
You know,
Oh, Ben, so wholesome.
I love that.
You know.
No, I love that.
you know, there was the one about Iron Man, Vision and Thor. Why did you stop shooting Ultron? I'm trying to remember, is that at the end when they're all fighting Ultron? But it's like a big battle anyway. I can't remember that bit. Why did you stop shooting Ultron?
Because
And so aggressive. Why the fuck did you stop shooting Ultron?
sounds like sounds like they all did something very dumb.
I mean, there's a lot of things that you could say to a lot of people in superhero movies. They just be like, what the fuck are you doing?
yeah.
Like,
Why don't you just use your superpower now?
Yeah.
That's what I mainly say.
exactly.
That's a good point.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Why not use your superpower now?
And then we can all go home and leave the cinema.
Yeah, exactly.
I would say to Mrs. Doubtfire, dude, this is really fucking weird. But it's also quite clever and heartwarming. So carry on.
I'd tell Steve Carell not to tell the guy in Little Miss Sunshine that he's colorblind because that scene is just too difficult to watch. I'd be like, just don't tell him.
He can't be a pilot.
Let him find out at flight school. Don't tell him this is too hard to watch. Because oh my God, that movie.
Why does he do that?
He works out that he's color. They just work out that he's colorblind, and he's taking a vow of silence because he wants to. He's like, I'm taking a vow of silence until I get into pilot school, and then Steve Carell works out that he's colorblind, and it's fucking heartbreaking. So
But then maybe it breaks his silence though.
It does break his silence. Yeah, that's the thing.
So
He
it's
gets
fine.
out of the car
Yeah.
and he like starts screaming and shouting. And
So
that's
that's
Paul
the
Dano
purpose.
actually. Yeah, he's really good in it. But yeah.
I'm going to rewatch that film. I love that film.
Yeah, it's so good. There's one more that I really like because I watched the film recently again. It does include a mini spoiler, so if you haven't watched Arrival, please skip the next 30
Arrival's
seconds.
so good.
Have you seen Arrival?
No,
It's so good.
it's on my list.
Okay.
So I put my fingers in my ears.
Yeah, maybe.
Take out your earphones and put your fingers in your ears.
Spoiler.
Okay, I'm doing it. Okay.
Yeah. I would tell Jeremy Renner's character in Arrival that Amy Adams' character did what she did out of love and not selfishness. Having kids has recently changed my perspective wherever children are involved in films.
I think that's vague enough that Simon could have listened.
Yeah, but there is someone that's responding to that comment that's saying, that is
okay.
so beautiful. She could have told him much earlier, but she wanted him to have spent some time with their daughter, allowing him to make some happy memories. And she only told him about their daughter's death at the time she thought would be right for him to prepare for the inevitable. So that's very
Okay,
sweet.
That is nice.
Yeah.
Safe now.
Yeah. And I really like that comment because it uses the idea of the film
Yeah.
itself to go back in time and say something about...
That's really nice. That's really
Yeah.
a touching, heartfelt one. Because when I thought about
Yeah.
this, all I was thinking of was things where it'd be like, is there something I could tell someone at the start of the film, which would mean the movie is over? Like Jason Bourne when he's pulled out of the water. If I told him, I just was like, okay, so Jason, what it is, you're a spy, you have multiple identities, these are all the people. That film ends in 5 minutes. You're like, great, we don't need the trilogy, the Jeremy Renner movie, and then the other one.
Any other comments, responses from the question?
I'd tell John Wick to take his dog to doggy daycare for the day. He can thank me later.
And we wouldn't have a franchise.
No, we wouldn't. That is true. We wouldn't have 3 excellent films and a 4th one on the way.
Yeah. Shame.
I love the John Wick movies. And
I love them.
But that dog element at the start is very upsetting. But then, yeah.
But it's like manipulation or like audience manipulation 1-to-1.
Yeah, you just turn up as a police officer at his door. It's like, I'm sorry, sir, but the dog's been barking during the day. You're going to have to send to the doggy daycare. Secretly, I know what's going to happen.
The credits roll, that's it.
Yeah,
That's so
or just
funny.
go to Luke in Star Wars. He's your dad.
Oh, look, a message from our sponsor.
G.I. Jane 2. Can't wait to see it.
Nah, yo, hold my poodle. Hey, yo, what's up? Y'all got a problem? Y'all want some of this?
Without much further ado,
Here we go again.
Okay, final scene time. We're back. So before we get into the endings of Blade Runner and Blade Runner 2049, we actually asked our Instagram community which one they liked better, out of curiosity. And Blade Runner 2049 won. Not by a landslide. I think it was like a 60-40.
Yeah. Because when I voted,
yeah.
I voted on the poll, and
Okay.
when I voted on the poll, it was like 80-20 or
yeah,
70-30 or
you're
something. It was like
right.
there was like a lot of people obviously voted early for 2049.
You're right.
All the Gosling hot Gosling
You're right.
fans out there.
Which surprised me quite a lot. But yeah,
If 2049 had never come out, Blade Runner still stands as one of like the pinnacle of like sci-fi movies that like even rewatching it now in the age of 2049, like with lots of special effects and much bigger, I think it still holds up really well because the story is so good. The performances in it are really good. Like Rutger Hauer's amazing in it.
So good.
I was going to say this, the Tears in Rain monologue at the end. I was like contemplating getting a tattoo. I was being like, will I get that like tattooed on my arm? Because I really like that like fades away like Tears in Rain. I think it's just
Beautiful.
like amazing. It's such an amazing speech.
I've seen
but you like 2049 as well, but in
I
a different
do,
way.
yeah.
Yeah.
I really like it. Just that, yeah, as you say, like in a different way. I still like really appreciate it. I think Denis Villeneuve's great. I think Gosling is brilliant in it. I was a little bit worried. I didn't really know what he was going to be like when I first went into it, but I still really like it, and I think it's really good. And they've kept, the scale of it, which is really good. And yeah, I just
felt like it was more of the same, and I got really bored in 2049. It didn't hold me.
Yeah, it's not for everyone. It's a 3-hour film. It's not.
It's definitely too long.
And having watched the original this morning, like the cinematography is incredible. Like
In the
it
original,
doesn't look
yeah.
dated, and also the sound design and the way it's mixed. And
That's what I'm saying. It still holds up.
Even the dialogue sounded amazing. Like the way they built like the reverb spaces in which the dialogue was happening. It just sounded so immersive. And what was that? In the 80s it was made?
Yeah, it's the
82.
Yeah,
82,
and it's an amazing feat of production. And I read that when Vangelis was making the soundtrack, in those days, he wasn't able to use MIDI to basically record his instruments. So he had to play loads of the synths that he was using live.
Wow.
So it had to be tracked like that. And also he was tracking to tape, and which meant that every time he did an overdub, it increased the amount of hiss on the recording.
Right.
So he had to make sure he couldn't do many re-records because it would increase the noise on the
I feel
recordings.
like I could lie and just like close my eyes and listen to the Blade Runner soundtrack for hours because it is just so like it's immense, but also those synths are just some of the like the kind of the brighter ones, should we say, are just like incredible. They sound so good.
I have a feeling that the reason people voted or preferred Blade Runner 2049 on my page is because I have a feeling I have a lot of Denis Villeneuve super fans on my page, so they're kind of skewed towards
That's fair.
that, which is fair. And again, it's a very different film. I am with you. I prefer Blade Runner as well. Even though if you asked me 3 years ago, maybe I would have a different answer. But right now, I think for me it comes down to the female perspective. And I just feel like Rachel is a much more compelling and interesting character compared to Joey. Ana de Armas' character. I feel like she's just assertive, versatile, like very well written. And then I don't know. I was a bit disappointed by the way Joy was written in 2049. She's just there to hype and cheerlead.
It just felt like
it's like
to give Kay another dimension.
Yeah, exactly.
Like she was a means to his character's
Yes.
end. Like there wasn't like with Rachel where she's a very integral part of the
Yeah,
film.
and she adds to the story progression as well.
Like if you take Rachel out of Blade Runner, it's a completely different film. If you take Anna de Armas out of 2049,
you can still work with it.
You can still work with it. Yeah, you can still do, you know, a fairly similar job. You're just getting less kind of Kay at home doing his groceries.
Rachel is pivotal to Blade Runner. So yeah, I feel like this is something that kind of is top of mind because I watched them recently again for the purpose of today.
Which one?
Both of them. For the podcast.
The happy ending one or the
happy ending one, unfortunately. But I did rewatch the ending of the director's and final cut as well. It's the same ending. We're going to talk about that now, actually, because there's a lot to unpack.
Especially the fact that on the happy ending version, apparently some of the footage is from The Shining that they had lying around.
Crazy.
They just chopped into it.
It's Warner Brothers
Which is
for
quite
you.
funny. I like it. That's what happens when you focus group the ending of a film to death.
That's how you Frankenstein your way into Hollywood, baby. So that's how it works. Yeah. Cool. So we start with the Blade Runner ending. And yeah, I know when we talk about it, we need to clarify which ending we're talking about because there are so many different versions. I think before we started recording, we mentioned 4 different versions at least that we know of. So the most critically acclaimed one is the final cut, the only version that Ridley Scott had full creative control over. Then we have a director's cut, which came out in 1992. These two are pretty similar, but final cut is even more definitive in that sense. And of course, yeah, we can't forget the theatrical, which is the one that, I rewatched recently. And yeah, I feel like that's the one that has the most like ill-fitting, inappropriate ending because you go full on Hollywood in the end to a film that's not Hollywood at all.
Riding off into the sunset.
Yeah, kind of negates the entire mood and tone of Blade Runner because you go from, if not pessimistic, like very realistic worldview and perspective to let's fuck off to the sunset together and like we were made for each other.
Funny because when you say that it's shots from leftover, like Be Real from The Shining.
Yeah.
You can kind of tell because it looks completely different. Like Blade Runner's really dark. It's really kind of always raining. It's always kind of dingy. And I guess they're, suggesting that it's the happy ending and all that, but it just doesn't suit it.
Yeah. What did you, because you watched Blade Runner today.
I watched the final cut.
Oh, okay, great.
But I thought Ridley Scott did endorse the final cut.
Because he does endorse the final cut. He doesn't endorse the theatrical cut.
Yes.
But then you said before you said, Sophie, the director's cut.
There's two.
There's two. So director's cut. So the director's cut, he still has a lot of input in that one, but it's not the entire like.
I think for the final cut as well, they like remastered it and stuff.
It's more technical, so the final cut has more violence in there. There's a lot of like more technical bits added. They're quite similar. Yeah, this is why it's like you have a director's cut, which still, from my understanding, like Ridley Scott. He gave a lot of notes to the final product. But if I remember correctly, it was actually a film preservationist. I think that's the term for it, who actually put together the director's cut on the back of the original working draft. And then you have Final Cut, which came out 10 years ago. And
they remastered it and stuff.
Which, when you compare the remastered one to the 2049, it looks just as good as the modern stuff.
Yeah,
like it's insane.
Yeah. I just wanted for us to play the voiceover that's playing on the back of, which is
I forgot. Yeah, that was the other big difference, wasn't it? They cut the voiceover for the directors and final cut because it was a bit patronizing, wasn't it?
The theatrical cut's the one with the voiceover.
It's a bit spoon-feedy.
It's very
spoon-feedy. Well, the behind-the-scenes story for that is that they started screening Blade Runner to test audiences and it started scoring very low. So they were like, oh shit, like we need to dumb this down for people because people don't even know what the origami is about. And then this is why they add B-roll footage in the end.
In the 80s, was Blade Runner initially a failure or a success money-wise? Like, was it one of those films?
Bombed. Yeah. So it bombed really hard.
So it took years for it to become this sort of cult classic.
It took like over 10 years for the director's cut to come out. I think the director's cut came out 1992, something like that.
Gaff had been there and let her live.
Sounds like Naked Gun.
4 years, he figured. He was wrong.
Oh my God.
It literally sounds like a Naked Gun monologue.
Yeah.
Rachel was special.
That could be Top Gun as well.
Termination date.
In the end, like final
scene. I didn't know how long we'd have together.
He sounds like he's going to say, And I'm serious. And don't call me Shirley. Like, it's terrible.
So let's compare that to Naked Gun.
The attempt on Nordberg's life left me shaken and disturbed. And all the questions kept coming up over and over again, like bubbles in a case of club soda.
Do you know what it sounds?
Even a sack.
Do you know what that sounds like? That sounds like, it really sounds like Harrison Ford even doesn't care.
Oh yeah, he
just
must have
sounds
hated
so
that.
bored.
Narration needs to go 90% of the time in film, generally. Like, anyway, that's a different conversation.
It's a much better ending when it's left open to interpretation.
Yeah, and it's smarter, period. Like, it's a smarter.
Yeah.
It's because the more it's theatre of the mind, the more powerful the art is, isn't it? The more your brain puts it together, the more impact it has on you.
Yeah.
Whereas if it's just telling you how to think, it takes away that specialness of it.
So moving on to the director's cut. So yeah, sorry, I'm reading my notes as well, but I was right. So it was, a film preservationist that put together the director's cut in 1992.
Almost like a fan cut. Kind of.
I'm pretty sure, no, because he collaborated with Ridley Scott. Like he gave his input, but he wasn't like the only person involved. Again, based on the original work print. And then this new cut became the default version for many years, and then Final Cut came out a few years later. Anyway, in the director's cut, as we know, the film stops with the elevator closing.
I just think of it as the final cut, just got that extra bit of polish on top of the director's cut.
And it ends with a much more interesting question, like, because let's assume director's cut and final cut are kind of the same.
Yeah.
From a narrative standpoint, there are not many changes. The difference between these two and the theatrical cut is, one, the ending, very different, and two, the final cut and the director's cut have the origami horse sequence, the dream sequence, somewhere in the middle, I believe,
unicorn,
where he's playing, Deckard's playing the piano, and then you have the horse running in a forest, in a foggy forest. People consider that sequence to be very important because it plays a very big part in understanding whether or why Deckard is a replicant. Because the argument is, in the end, you have Gaff leaving the origami for him to find, basically proving to him that he has access to his memories. Because the only other time we've seen the origami is in his memory. So it's like, how could Gaff know about the origami? It's not like Deckard would go around and talk about his dreams. How could he know that he's been dreaming about that origami?
And it's the same narrative device that's then used in 2049 to show the K as a replicant as well.
I think it's a nice tribute what they did there.
It's the small wooden horse in 2049.
I mean, there's a lot of debate out there in terms of whether Deckard is a replicant or not. I'm going to play a clip from this documentary short called Deckard, The True Nature of Rick Deckard. It's 10 minutes long, and basically a bunch of people behind the scenes talking about, debating whether he is or he's not a replicant. And, Ridley Scott has a very strong opinion about it. Harrison Ford has a different opinion about it.
How would anyone have known what was inside his head other than someone who knew what was in his file that had been implanted in his brain? Can't be any clearer than that. If you don't get it, you're a moron.
Harsh.
That's Ridley Scott for you.
Do you guys really care that much whether he's a replicant or not?
I think it's more interesting in 2049, I would say, because I think that's more of a question, because Kay's character is built a lot more on the turmoil of knowing that or not. I don't think Deckard's character I don't think that's a big part of him, whether he's a replicant or not. But a big part of Kay is, I don't know who I am, finding these memories. Why do I know what this is? And they a lot more of the narrative and the plot in 2049 is around where did his memories come from, and then they use that to play it in. Whereas, as you say, it doesn't really bother me as much in the original because I don't, necessarily
doesn't really
care about it as much.
Yeah, I'm not invested as much in that question, but I think depending on what you believe or what you make out of the film kind of changes in its intention. So, for example, why is Gaff so obsessed with Deckard? Why is he following him around? If you think about he's kind of creeping on him throughout the film, Gaff. And he's a veteran LAPD officer, right? I mean, that's the idea. Why is he so obsessed with him? And one argument could be if he's a replicant, then he might just be watching over him and he might be tailing him in a way, making sure that he's doing his job. But if he's a human, why is Gaff obsessed with him? Again, this is me thinking out loud. I don't have an argument, but I do think it changes the story because Gaff is a really big part. Like, you can see how he's stalking him in a way. I do think it makes for a good, question.
I just spent most of the film being quite confused.
It looks great. Confused?
Yeah.
Did you find the narrative?
I just couldn't. It didn't grab me. The only bit I got
Wait,
engaged
you're talking about the original one?
Yeah,
now?
in the original, the only bit I got into it was the scary rainy house section where you're like, is he going to get killed or whatever? That's the only time my heart was racing and I was like invested in the film. The rest of it, I was just like, I mean, it looks lovely and the sound's wicked, but the story doesn't grab me.
Right, yeah, no, I get that. I mean, it's supposed to be quite...
Because you know, when you watch something or your friends that you think are cool recommend some music when you're a kid and like, you're like, I should like this, you know, everyone's saying it's cool. It's like my mum always says she wasn't cool enough to like Talking Heads. And I'm always like, you shouldn't work like that. But you know what I mean? Like, you just know this is a classic, everyone talks about it, I should like it. But I gave it my all, but I just couldn't get into it. I didn't love it.
He's a particular character and you have to be in that kind of mind space to be able to appreciate. No, I'm not saying you're not appreciating. I'm saying he's a very depressed like character. Like he doesn't, I mean, Deckard.
Well, Deckard at the start of the film is just a bit of an arsehole.
As well.
He's just a bit of a dick. Like he's
not easy to like.
Yeah, he's not a very like, and really he's not that, you don't gravitate towards him.
It's like, I don't know, it reminds me of like Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy. It's a film that I love, but I still don't understand to this day. But I still really love it.
It's a hard film.
I need to watch that film over and over again to kind of get it. But in Blade Runner, I don't know, I've watched it a couple of times and just haven't got into it.
I think there's a difference between understanding and liking.
That's true. I think you can like a film and not necessarily understand it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mrs. Doubtfire.
There you go. No one still...
Great wig work though.
To this day, I still question it. I still question the wig work.
Has there been an episode we've done that we haven't referenced Mr. Doubtfire?
I don't think
maybe
so.
The one, maybe Full Metal Jacket, it was just you and me.
Yeah,
Ben.
where it's just you and
maybe
me.
That was the one.
But even still, I feel like I might have slipped it in.
in spirit.
Slipped in some Doubtfire. The wig work on Brosnan's chest is fantastic.
That's true.
That's so funny.
He does his own wig work, man.
Oh, God.
Blew it myself.
Cool. So, for the 2017 sequel, Blade Runner 2049, the question over whether Deckard was a replicant or not still had to be addressed. And I know, like Ben, you just mentioned that earlier, there are like, they kind of touch on it through, maybe indirectly through Officer K. But what did you make out of that ending where you had Officer K kind of playing with his own humanity, for lack of a bit, semi-humanity, because he's not actually human. But then in opposition to Deckard, who's clearly, for me, he's clearly a replicant in 2049.
Who?
Deckard. Like, it's much more clear. I don't think there is much room for interpretation there.
Is there the glint in the eye thing that gives it away as well?
That's in the original Blade
Does that not
Runner.
happen in
The
2014?
glint in the milkman's eye that
the
all
twinkle.
replicants have,
Yeah, because it's like the hunter becomes the hunted in 2049. And clearly like the Wallace Corporation and the whole conspiracy wouldn't have happened if he was just human. Why would they hunt down Rachel and Deckard's child to create a new breed of replicants? To me, like, Villeneuve has a very strong point of view in terms of whether he's a replicant or not.
The debate to me reminds me a bit of, are we all living in a simulation?
Oh, yeah, to be like that.
And,
It's
like...
kind of a Truman Show kind
it's
of.
like layers of simulation.
Yeah.
Nobody knows what's real and nobody knows what's pretend.
Yeah, and I think that is a part, part of it to leave it up to interpretation to, or like the ending of Inception. Is it are they awake? Is it a dream? It's more interesting when you kind of don't know. Mm-hmm. As you say, it's a lot more interesting than the original when you don't spoon feed it to people, It's, it's nicer to just leave it kind of hang.
Mm-hmm. But what's interesting? Because they do they do refer to 2049 as a sequel. So it's not just like it's not like a tribute or...
It's not a remake.
My question is, it's a sequel to which version?
I think it can be a sequel to both.
Okay,
I think
like
it's
that.
more enjoyable if it's a sequel to the director's cut rather than it being, again, just being spoon-fed to you.
Well, I think the thing that makes it interesting is Ben's theory was that in the lift, they have sex and Rachel gets pregnant. And that makes more sense, I think. Yeah. So therefore the director's cut version has more...
The steamy cut.
Has more... the steamy cut. So because I was saying, like, did
Titanic
Rachel get pregnant at the end
stuff,
of the first Blade Runner?
Yes.
And Sophie was like, well, it's probably at some point. And Ben was like, well, it happened in the lift. So actually that means that it only works with the director's cut, which ends with the lift doors closing, because that's when they did it.
Yeah.
I like that because in a way, what we're saying is that there isn't one answer to that question. It's more like it's not just about the narrative of the film or the story, which could go either way. It's also about the meta narrative of the film, which goes like to us having the conversation about like whether he's a replicant or not, like what is the right version and things like that. So it kind of transcends.
I guess in an alternate universe where that theatrical cut never happens and that is a director's cut, there's not really much to talk about because it is a satisfying ending anyway. That you just think that you don't know and it's left up to interpretation. Then you go, because the great thing about that is then you don't really need a sequel. And so the sequel has to be clever enough, which then 2049 kind of is. Yeah, to earn its place there. And I think 2049 does that. I think it definitely does that.
When the lift doors shut in the director's cut, I didn't find I was like, oh, I feel really unsatisfied. I was like, it's finished. I'm done. Like, it's a perfectly fine ending. I wasn't hanging.
It should cut to credits.
So with endings, right? What are we saying? Is a good film ending one that satisfies us, leaves us hanging, leaves us asking questions? What is it? What is it that like we want out of an ending?
I think a good film ending. A good film ending can do all of those things.
Yeah, I think it's more nuanced than that because I do think there endings that are open-ended, but they're also lazy, and that pisses me off. Like I'm like,
well, when you don't know how to write your way out of it.
You don't know how to end it, so you just put that thing in there to make it more confusing, and then you're gonna go to your press tour and be like, oh, just leave it up to interpretation. It's like, no, you just didn't know how to end the film.
For some people, like the end of Sopranos,
right?
Just cuts to black.
Yeah.
Because we couldn't, could you end it? Maybe you should have. Yeah. I don't think a good film ending has to do that. Like a good film ending can have a resolution and you can know and it can be satisfying and it can have a happy ending. Very much like La La Land, Wayne's World. They do multiple endings. They want it. They do the sad ending. They do the, the Scooby-Doo ending and then they do the happy ending. Then a film like Blade Runner, I think it's a good example of how the tone of the ending has to suit the tone of the film. The tone of the theatrical cut ending doesn't suit the tone of the rest of the film, whereas the director's cut definitely does, because it just feels so out of place. It feels like B-roll from The Shining, and they got Harrison Ford in. I don't know. He's filming Air Force One, and they're like, Harrison, we need you to jump in a studio in LA for 5 minutes to record this fucking voiceover. Why? Blade Runner's testing badly. And like, okay, fuck it, I'll just go in and do it. I'm reading from a piece of paper. As Simon and I who've worked with voiceovers before and directed people, it literally sounds like he's just reading off a piece of paper.
But the mad thing is about this discussion on the ending of Blade Runner is that it's a screenplay loosely based on a book.
Yeah.
So who's even in charge of defining the ending? Like, is it
the
just...
director? The director.
Is it? I mean,
if you're to believe Olivia Wilde, it's the director. It's all on the director.
Oh. Okay.
And then, so what pressure is the director under? Is it the studio going, we need to make the most dollar? Or is it somebody saying, you can make high art? Like,
I think it's telling in that Ridley Scott is like, the final cut is my cut of the film.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, but that's years later.
But you don't have to have one version of because the thing is
that was a luxury that he didn't know he was going to have. Like he had the theatrical cut released, and then years later that was an option because it became a cult classic.
Sure, but that just because theatrical cut was the very first version of the film, that doesn't mean it was the original artistic expression of the artist.
That's what I'm saying. Who has that?
It depends on the output. So, for example, the purpose of the theatrical cut was to make money. It wasn't art, right? Because
it's all in the same, isn't it?
No, Scott didn't have a say.
I think as well, you kind of have to be careful because much like the movie or the music industry, the movie industry was a very different place. Obviously, it is all still about money, but artistic integrity, I feel like now is a much more prominent thing because directors have a lot more of a voice. It's not just like you have a studio has the directors that they go to. Like directors are not just the guy behind the camera anymore. They're very like, again, to go, as I said about Olivia Wilde, you look at Don't Worry Darling, a big part of like the release of the film and the press of the film is her thoughts and what she thinks. And if we go back to like Ridley Scott's last film, like The Last Duel, a lot of it is about what he thinks and his interpretation of it. That wasn't really a thing back in, you know, maybe the 80s or 90s. It was more so the director directs the film. Harrison Ford, well, we care what Harrison Ford thinks because Harrison Ford's the face of the film.
Blade Runner 2049 has a very definitive, as in like, you know, you can see like in the end what happens. So we have Officer K who has just rescued Deckard, right?
Yeah.
And he's like, you're safe and sound. We're going to kind of fake your death. Go meet your daughter.
The telling thing that he says to him is he gives him the horse and he says all the best memories are hers.
Yes.
And that's the big thing. That's the main thing that he... Cause I think
that's a twist beforehand.
Deckard says to him, he's like, what are you to me? Or something along those lines. And he gives him the horse, which is like the unicorn from the original.
Yep.
And says, all the best memories are hers.
Yes.
Go and meet your daughter.
So Deckard goes in to meet his daughter and Officer K dies on the stairs. Like it's one of the I think it's one of the most beautiful shots in Denis Villeneuve's films. And it's
in the snow.
In the snow as well, which I know we talked about earlier. There is something to be said in terms of, is it some sort of, like from the Villeneuve point of view, could you argue that it's a visual cinematic parallel to Tears in Rain? So you go from Rain, which is something like a bit more fluid and uncertain and flowy, to
possibly
snow.
I think the film in general though uses weather in a lot of different ways though, because you go then in also the scenes where Kay goes to find Deckard, it's in sandstorms, it's in the desert, it's all like I think there's definitely a lot of like maybe more so to do with like the color scheme, you know, it's maybe something to do with, you know, the physicality of snow as well, but it goes from being like, again, very similar, like lots of dark, lots of neons, like pinks, blues, to then the start of the film. Then the middle is this really kind of burnt orange, like bright, like in your face kind of Sierra color, to then back to rain kind of and into snow. Because
we do see Kay and Joey, you know, in Rain throughout the film. And when we see Rain, it's usually when he's kind of, he feels lost. You know, he doesn't feel like he belongs anywhere, and he's quite, he's trying to find his ground, and he's questioning a lot of things about his morality and things like that. And to me, maybe I'm reaching, I'm not sure, but I thought it was interesting. It was the very first time we're seeing snow in a way, because it had that kind of, oh, now I found like my work here is done, and like maybe the snow kind of showed that, solidifying his character and his mission. I think as well moment. Because we just go from when he saves Deckard, he saves him from drowning in the car, in the rain, in the water. Yep. And actually, I think snow gives an element of calm and like neutrality, maybe. Like it's quite, you know, with the ending of, not necessarily the ending of Blade Runner, but the scene before with, you know, Rutger Hauer and his final scene, it's like it's raining, it's, you know, it's dark, it's grimy, whereas this is, it's bright, there's the mixture of the kind of the grey buildings and the white snow, and it's just calm. And it's like kind of both characters have found peace. It's kind of just... That's what I love, you know, it's a nice ending for it, that both, you know, Kay can finally just awful, but let go and die. It's about the power of choosing in a way. I think that's what it's all about with him anyway, as a character. Because he thought he was helpless, right? And I think in the end he could have gone down Deckard or Kay? No, sorry, Kay. I mean, both, really. But yeah, yeah. They're pretty much carbon copies of one another. Like. He's choosing to help Deckard. He could have, he had every opportunity not to, and, you know, kill him or... Yeah. Yeah. Cool. So happy 40th to Blade Runner, because... Happy 40th too. I have to say, I still think Blade Runner is one of the coolest movie titles. It's one of the coolest movies. And at least, like, if I said to you, oh, we're going to watch Blade Runner, I don't think you'd automatically think I'm going to watch a movie about a policeman whose job it is to weed out replicant robots. It's like it has such a kind of cool, ominous title. So cool. Okay, I think we solved not one, but two endings today. So We're back, by the way, to our regular programming. So we will see you in 2 weeks with the now much anticipated Don't Worry, Darling. We can't wait to see this one. If you missed us, take a second to share this episode on your Instagram stories or your movie group chat. Spread the Blade Runner love. Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you in 2 weeks. Bye.
Did you like it? Did you like that?
Did I like it? I loved it.
I had no idea you could milk a cat.
I have nipples, Greg. Could you milk me?
Good morning.
Morning. Good morning.
Oh, and in case I don't see you, good afternoon, good evening, and good night.